calls from the general public about the bad driving on the roads. I don't want to single out any particular driving category, but of course, bikes and taxis come in for quite a bit of criticism on the road. And it is a part of the general frustration of the public having to contend with heavy traffic and then also having to contend with life-endangering behavior on the road by certain road users.
Road safety is a must, and we have to practice it. So as you traverse the nation's roads, be mindful of your driving. The life you save could be your very own. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
The tinting of your windscreen, cut it out. Public passenger vehicles, according to the Transport Authority Act, not supposed to have tints. I'm appealing to motorists out there. We have removed many plates because of fandangles that are on the motor vehicle. Colorful lights, red light, purple light, blue light, and these multicolored lights. Get them off. I've noticed some trends out there where there is different type of license plates on motor vehicles. Only the Jamaican issued driver's license plates are to be on the motor vehicles. Once you transport any passenger in a motor vehicle, ensure that they are buckled, whether they are on the front or they are on the back. The seatbelt gives people a fighting chance to survive the crash. Many people have died who never give themselves a fighting chance.
On Get the Facts this week, we talk praedial larceny.
Welcome to Get the Facts. This is the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm Theodore Henry. Today we're discussing praedial larceny and its impact on farmers and the agriculture and fisheries sectors. We will also tell you what the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries is doing to protect the country's food chain. Now, providing that information is head of the Praedial Larceny Prevention Unit, Superintendent Oral Pasco. Welcome to the program, Superintendent Pasco.
Yes, thank you, sir, for having me today.
All right, let's jump right into getting the facts.
Yes, sir.
First and foremost, please, give me an overview of the unit's functions. What does it do?
So the Praedial Larceny Prevention Coordination Unit was set up in about 2014, 2015.
Right.
Its main purpose is to increase the awareness across the island of the plague or the scourge of praedial larceny on our farming and fisheries sector. The importance of it is that our role is to coordinate activities right across the island with all the stakeholders to ensure that we develop preventative measures, as the word says, prevention.
Yes, I noticed that.
And we ensure that at the end of the day, the farmers benefit from what they grow. They reap what they grow. And that is the main emphasis of the unit.
Right, and I can assume that definitely you want the farmers, as one of the stakeholders, to feel secure in their trade.
That's correct.
All right, so let's do a little definition here. Praedial larceny, I've come to understand, doesn't necessarily mean anything that is taken from a farm.
No.
Help us understand.
That's correct. So praedial larceny is one of the offenses under the Larceny Act. But actually, agriculture produce theft. The Agriculture Produce APA, Agriculture Produce Act, gives a wider definition of categories of items that are, including fish, oysters, fish, and so forth. So it's a much wider definition. You can charge someone for praedial larceny if they steal stuff from the farm. But you can also charge them for larceny of cattle, larceny of goats, and so forth. But the Larceny Act is a very wide piece of legislation. Matter of fact, there's about 15 pieces of legislation that actually covers theft or breaches of the offenses under the agriculture produce right across the board.
And praedial larceny is one of them.
Is one of. But of course, because praedial larceny, in definition in the law, has to do with agriculture produce, but not necessarily as wide. It's very limited in the act itself. But the Agriculture Produce Act widens that boundary to include a lot of amongst other things.
Understood. So we use the word to generally mean
we
that.
use the word.
But legally, it has a... Yes, understood.
You're correct.
Understood. Now, you mentioned prevention I like the fact that prevention is in the name. That means there are strategies, there are things that the unit and its stakeholders are doing to protect the sector. Could you tell us about some of the main strategies that are the structures that the unit has in place and are working on?
Okay, so in terms of strategies and structures, one of the key things we try to do is to improve awareness among all the key stakeholders. So the farmers, for example, the farmers will need to be aware of what the laws are, or they affect them, or they can, for example, register, and or registering how it affects, or we actually do, the police itself and the ministry do our enforcement and compliance of the laws. As I said, there are 14 pieces of legislation that affects the farmers and other stakeholders. So it is critical that we know what to do, all the stakeholders know, the police know that all the laws are in the books and they know what. So for example, if someone goes on a farm and steals something, there's multiplicity of laws that you can apply versus just applying one, and the person might just use a technicality and get off that.
Right, and the police need to know that.
Need to know that, and so that's why continuous training is important, and sensitization. There's even an effort in which currently we're looking at rolling out some sensitization programs across the board. And there's one particular sensitization program we're looking at judiciary, because we can't train the judges. The judges are very learned.
Right.
But we can sensitize on the wide spectrum of the applicability of the laws. And we can look at the police side, not only train the police that are in the units, in the divisions, because some divisions don't have a unit because they're in Kingston or St. Andrew.
Right.
And they're in the urban side, so they wouldn't have a praedial larceny unit. However, the responsibility is very wide and encompass enforcement of the compliance aspects of it. So it's not only when somebody goes and report a crime, there are other aspects of the Agriculture Produce Act that if breached, for example, is a wide piece of legislation, the key legislation, it has to do with the receipt book and so forth.
So, okay, we've spoken about enforcement and compliance. You mentioned the legislation framework, generally. I want to talk about traceability as one of the structures. You mentioned the record book. And
So for traceability, there are about three main aspects of traceability as part of the matter of fact, the ministry has a four-pronged strategy generally. And I'm going to break it out and then probably, if you allow me, go through it individually.
Sure.
So traceability is at the top, and then there's enforcement and compliance, and then there is legal framework, or matter of fact, in terms of strengthening the legal framework, are the laws surrounding and the applicability of the laws, updating and so forth.
Right, as you were discussing,
yes. And institutional arrangement, the JAS, RADA, the police, the Ministry of Health, public health inspectors, or all judiciary, everyone work together to actually bring some level of conformity to the system.
All right, so those are the pillars, and you had started talking about it. But could you give us a bit more information about traceability itself?
So traceability itself has to do with, there are three main elements I would have said earlier. There is a receipt book system, which is the key and critical one. And
tell us about that.
So the receipt book system is that in order to get the receipt, a receipt book to trade or to sell agriculture produce, which under the Agriculture Produce Act, you will have to be registered with RADA. You have to be a registered farmer.
So the institutional arrangement comes in
there. Yes,
like how they play together, yes.
So you register with RADA, and then once you're a registered farmer, you go on a database with all information, what crops you produce, and so on and so forth. And of course, you can update it as you go along, and it is backed by law. And then now, once you get that, the Jamaica Agriculture Society, they are the key ones, I think RADA does it too, that issues the receipt book. Now, it is critical, because if you were to sell or receive agriculture produce, even if you're a farmer and you sell the things and you're an eagle and you pay your money and you didn't steal the things, and you're transporting the goods, or you're caught in possession and you can't show where you got these goods from, you'll be committing an offense. And the policies we're going after, we're going to be, that's why the compliance part is so important. We're pushing to increase the compliance rate. So the take-up is very low though.
We're going to talk about that, but let me just jump in here to see if we can get some more of the facts. Enforcement and compliance, the police would show up perhaps at a stall. Yes, you see this produce. Yes. I should be able, as the higgler, to say, this is my receipt, right? The farmer should be able to say, this is what I sold, and I have a receipt. Yes. So it's about being able to track the produce, animal, fish, grown produce, as it goes. Am I getting that right?
You are correct. So that is the main objective of it. However, someone goes to the farm gate, they purchase. The farmer who is duly registered gives them a receipt. That person takes that receipt. There's an assumption the person is going to sell it directly to the market or consume it.
Right.
However, the receipt book stops there. So that is where we're saying about the legislation. That is that aspect of the legislation framework strengthening comes in.
Right.
That is probably one of the downfalls of that system. So that is critical that we look forward to that, and that is probably in the works to fix.
All right, we're gonna talk about that. We're going to go to our break shortly, but just before we do, you mentioned does this unit operate across the island?
We have national jurisdiction. Matter of fact, my official post is the National Predator Arson Preventive Officer. So that's a national, and the unit has national jurisdiction right across Jamaica.
All right, so there is no place left uncovered in Jamaica by the Praedial Larceny Prevention Unit. Now, we're going to go to our break right now, and we've discussed very important information for all stakeholders in the agriculture sector to know, but there is more. So stay with us. Right after this short break, we continue this conversation with Superintendent Pasco. Welcome back to Get the Facts. We are continuing our conversation with Head of the Praedial Larceny Prevention Unit, Superintendent Oral Pasco. Now, we have discussed a great deal so far. Let's continue the conversation with some of the challenges that are affecting our farmers and our fisher folk in relation to theft. You mentioned at the start of our conversation, you used the word, and I remember, plague and scourge.
Yes, that's correct.
Tell us about what it's like on the ground.
No. Farmers, I think when I last checked the RADA database, there was 242,000 registered farmers on the database. Now that's a large sector of our economy. This is a sector of our economy, when you think about it, they feed us and they have a family to feed. Now, when a farmer's farm is raided, his animals are stolen, it creates a disincentive for the farmers. And more often when persons come to take what is not theirs, they use force oftentimes, especially when they're stealing animals, and farmers could lose their life or risk being injured. So it is critical that we look at the importance of the effect on the farmers individually, their families and the communities, because when, of course, a farmer could invest in 10 acres of coconut jellies and he only does 5 because he has a fear of predator larceny. So it is one of those eliminating factors that prevent expansion of the farming sector. And of course, when you expand the farming sector, it's actually one of those growth drivers of the Jamaica, the GDP.
Right, yes.
And of course, it is, and farming, you have to remember, nationally, apart from the effect on the farmers, it is import substitution, because when we grow what we need to eat, we don't have to import it, and that valuable US or foreign currency can be used to do something more important, that, of course, to expand the economy and benefit for all of us.
But also certainly export.
Definitely.
We try to join in the global market. And I'm very curious about the data, what the data shows. Are we trending up or down?
Well, the data is consistent. You'd want to believe that it is increasing, and I would want to believe that it is increasing, because when crimes increase, economic crimes also increase it, because when there's a squeeze, persons tend to go for the easiest. They think a farm is the easiest thing to go steal, because nobody tends to it. So it is affecting, the data is showing, based on what I have, that on an annual basis, from about 2014 to about current, is about over 1,000 reported cases. I want to say reported.
You're stressing reported, yes.
Reported cases of predator larceny theft.
Okay.
And we're saying that based on when we go into the field and we speak to the farmers and all the stakeholders, we realize that this is probably 3 or 4-fold higher than what a lot of farmers, they feel intimidated, because the persons who steal from them, probably some of them are fellow farmers, some of them are community members, and remember, most of our farmers done in the small communities. So that level of insecurity and security, they won't come forward. There's also an issue of when persons go and they go through the process and go through the courts. when the fine is given, they believe, some of the times, they believe that that fine, they will get it to reimburse them for their loss. That's not the case, but under the Larceny Act, and that is why the education and sensitization is so important, there is a thing called restorative justice in terms of restitution. Is there as one of those factors. We're not being applied enough, and that is why the sensitization across the board is important, that farmers feel like when we want to encourage them to report, but when they do report and we go put good case files in, they get a sense of justice. A matter of fact, if, for example, animal stealing or large-scale stealing, if somebody is convicted of it, I think since 2018, 2019, you ever heard of Proceeds of Crime Act?
Right.
Once it's agriculture produce, it is applicable. So not only that the person under Larceny Act can be restored back some level of value, but going forward, the state can prosecute the person under Proceeds of Crime Act and take away their assets. So it is
for restitution?
Restitution is there in the Larceny Act, but take away it and put it in our coffers. So they can take away the house as proceeds of crime, because somebody's living a criminal lifestyle, stealing people's stuff, buying cars, living in a nice house. The government under proceeds of crime, like any other crime, can seize those assets and liquidate it.
You laid out the situation on the ground, and I can just imagine how it is really when you live there, and perhaps the person who has raided your farm is a part of the community. You know who they are, they know who you are. What measures can farmers take to safeguard their farms?
Well, currently one of our main strategies is to push the Farmers Watch and the Beach Watch program, because the fisher folks are being affected by the stealing of engine and so forth, and nets and raiding of fish pots and so forth. So that's why we say farmers and fisher folks. And we're saying that farmers, like for example, they need to mark their go through the process and register first. They have to register. Try to put identification mark. Where they have to brand the animals and so forth. Try to put fencing around their property. Put gates, for example, and try to monitor, and don't be predictable. And if where they have animals beside their homes, try to put some form of security system in, some lights, of course. Try to debush the general area and so forth, and try to ensure that they be more aware of some of these issues that can affect them. But the Farmers and Beach Watch, we think that the Farmers Watch program is one of those game changers. Just imagine farmers can come together in a community, they can join up and they can form a group, and they can have the WhatsApp group, and anything suspicious they see going on. Because most of these thieves, these praedial thieves and agriculture produce thieves, they are known. They're known, and they're very habitual. That's what they know. They steal coconut over and over, they steal produce over and over, and that's what they do for a living. And if you come together, your farmers group. The issue we're having with the Farmers Watch group is that there's the sustainability of these groups are not there. When there's an incident, everybody wants a farmer group to protect themselves. But when that get cold and get comfortable again, they don't have any interest to go to the meetings. And that is why we're working on those aspects of the not only farming the groups, but ensure that we have sustainability built in, and then use that mechanism as one of the major mechanisms to help the farmers protect themselves, along with putting in personal things around to protect their produce and crops.
I'm happy that you brought in the fisher folk as well, because that's an element that we tend not to think about. So you gave us a look at what that looks like. I'm sure we could ask about, we mentioned the institutional framework, and I know that there's the provision for them to access many of these things, or funding for it from these institutions. So the opportunity is there, you know. We're almost out of time. We're almost out of time. But I want to give you the opportunity to say a final word to our viewers. You are on the ground. You see what's happening. Encourage them. Give them some incentive. Tell them what you'd like them to hear.
So I'm going to speak to the farmers and the citizens. Citizens, if you know of where persons are trading in illicit agriculture produce, call the police. Call the police, tell someone. And of course, farmers, we're asking you to ensure that you register with RADA. Get your receipt book and at least put up some level of traceability. If you have animals like cattle, please join up with the NATES program and get them registered. So if we were to do investigations and were to do raids on supermarkets and wholesales and meat shops, we can then trace back that meat to someone and get them arrested. Most of these animal stealing, they are rings. People join up in group and they steal goats and cattle and so forth. So help us to help you. And please join all farmers, join and beach fisher folk. Please join a farm watch program and be active in that program. And the fisher folk were saying the same thing. We need to join a beach watch. Farm one if there's none. And call us and we will definitely try to assist you in getting that done.
All right. So this has been Get the Facts. It's a lot of information to absorb, but we'll ensure that these facts are available for you on our YouTube page. Our guest has been head of the Praedial Larceny Prevention Unit at the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, Superintendent Oral Pasco. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'm Theodore Henry. Take good care.
Yo, this is We're committed to reducing the impact of disasters occurring in Jamaica. We're ever ready to assist you before, during, and after a disaster. But everybody have a role to play, so make we work together and follow the plan. Whether rich or poor or where you come from, hurricanes affect everyone, so be prepared. Prevention is better than cure. Be prepared. Listen to ADPEM. A message from the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management.
In this next feature, see the work of one Jamaican in his quest to build a robust public sector.
Hi Dunstan, I see you starting your day right. How are you?
I'm good, I'm here, I'm alive in this very, very interesting time in life, and I'm happy to be here leading and navigating through what is one of the most challenging times in the history of this country.
What are your morning rituals?
My morning rituals are like everyone else, I get up, I give thanks, I engage with my family, and I ensure that I link with that philosophy that says, thy will be done.
What song is a must on your morning playlist?
I'm Roman Catholic, and one of my favorite hymns is a hymn that repeats Jeremiah that says, we are called to act with justice. We are called to love tenderly. We are called to serve one another and walk humbly with God. I'll catch you later.
All right. In one sentence, tell us what you do.
I am the accounting officer for the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
What was the most difficult decision for you this week?
Boy, the most difficult decision for me this week was the decision that I had to make to reduce staff complement, because after COVID, some persons who were employed for the COVID engagement, we had to terminate their contracts. And it was sad to see a lot of them go because they were so important to the overall implementation of the COVID campaign.
Do you feel that you inspired or motivated anyone last week?
Yes, I believe I have inspired my team. Morning, everyone. Morning. Morning. And I believe that the other colleagues that I engage with in terms of the regional directors, the regional technical directors, we had very robust meetings over the last couple of days around the budget, and we are inspired to work.
Has anyone or anything made you feel inspired lately?
Yes, I am inspired by the team of persons that I work with here. My special assistant, who gives me all the support that I need. My policy analysts that are assigned to my office, they are such an important part of the work that we do here in the executive office.
What's your proudest career moment to date?
My proudest career moment is working at the PATH program, where every decision that I made during my tenure there impacted the lives of so many people. If it were just improving the payment access or increasing the number of persons that got the benefit, or it could be the opportunities that we gave to young people to change their lives through active labor market interventions. Those were very very, very proud moments in my life as we impacted and transformed so many lives, especially when we talk about the persons who come from path households and receive so many accolades in terms of their academic achievement.
What would you like your legacy to be in the public sector?
My legacy will be a change agent, and I want to be a person who sets the foundation for the reform that is so well needed in the public sector. I know that I myself will not be able to achieve all of the changes, but to set the foundation so that the baton can be passed to the next set of leaders coming into the public sector, and they can take it and transform this bureaucracy into a system that provides a lot of support for the people of this country.
Where's the most interesting place your work has taken you?
Ethiopia. I remember working with the Jamaica Social Investment Fund, and under that project we went to Ethiopia to experience what community intervention and enablement looks like. And that was a very powerful experience to see that country move through some of the most challenging times of its history and come on the other side of history looking far more robust and far more sustained and resilient.
What are you working on that you are excited about?
There's a lot of things that I'm working on that I'm very excited about. One of the major things that I'm excited about right now is the intervention to improve and expand our cancer treatment program in Jamaica by ensuring that in terms of radiotherapy, chemotherapy, and other services relating to cancer, we can provide support to people who get this devastating diagnosis, and we can provide the help for a very catastrophic financial hit that families get and enable them to live fruitful and beneficial lives even after coming out of this traumatic experience.
And before we go, can you recommend one book you think everyone should read?
My book of transformation is The Children of Sisyphus by Orlando Patterson. It's a tale of a woman who lived in Dungle, which was what Tivoli was called, and she came out of the Dungle, became a little bit empowered, but then her poverty brought her back straight to the Dungle. So it's an experience of what poverty is and how poverty captures your mental capacities and can disable you if you're not careful and if you do not understand that poverty is a sickness of the mind.
All right, thank you so much, Dunstan.
Sure, later.
Have a good one.
Yeah, man.
That's all the time we have left today on this show. Do join us again tomorrow on this same station for another exciting installment of Jamaica Magazine. To rewatch today's offering or other content like this, visit our website, jis.gov.jm. From all of us here at the JIS, have yourself a wonderful Sunday. I'm Adrian Atkinson. See you next time.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.